What's going on, guys? Welcome to this week's episode of Ask Mish. I wanted to thank you guys. I got so much positive feedback last week about the episode I did on fear and all the weird ways that it shows up in our life. So if you haven't heard that one, it might be a good one to check out after this one. And if you're enjoying this podcast, I have a quick ask of you guys. If you wouldn't mind just like going into the app and just rating it 5 stars, please. It would be amazing. It helps out a lot. If you could rate it 5 stars, that would be amazing. All right, so now let's dive into this week's episode. Dear Mish, every summer I make a promise to myself that next summer, I will finally get the bikini body. But here we are, another summer, and I'm putting on my bathing suit in disgust. I really don't want to go through another season wearing shorts to the beach or feeling like I have to cover up. What is the fastest way that I could lose weight so I can actually feel good about myself this summer? So I want to start this conversation out by saying I understand and I know more than most people how it feels because I've experienced it myself, and then I experience it multiple times a day this time of year with multiple people every single day. I understand how it feels when you are putting those summer clothes on and you're not happy with how you look, especially when it's not the first season and you promised yourself last season that this was never going to happen again. And then here you are. I understand the frustration and the torment that you mentally put yourself through in those moments. What I want to do with this conversation is I want to give you a little bit of a different viewpoint on it. I want to give you my experience on it. And I really want you walking away being like, you know what? She makes sense. I'm not just going to be like body positivity and like it doesn't matter, because like I get that it matters. I understand body positivity. I love body positivity, but I understand if you're my age and older, we didn't grow up that way. So if you are already a body positive person, I love that for you. But if you're like us and you grew up, in the 90s, early 2000s, it's not innate in us to just naturally love our bodies. And it's actually very natural for us to hate and criticize our bodies because we were given these extremely unrealistic standards growing up. So if this is not you, amazing. I love that for you. Don't ever change. But if this is you, I want you to walk away listening to this, feeling differently about it. I'm not going to give you rah bullshit. I'm going to give you how I really feel about it. And I hope it resonates with you. So before I tell you what I want you to start doing, I'm going to advise you what I would not do. When you first try on the bathing suit, the bikini, the shorts, the whatever, and you have the whole critical conversation, after the critical conversation comes the negotiation part of the conversation. And I'm going to advise you to either skip this part or do it differently. Here's what I'm talking about. At the end of that conversation, you'll say to yourself, okay, it is, if you're listening to this in real time, mid-June. If I'm really good, if I'm really, really good by July, I can be X amount of pounds down, or I can look better. Or if I really, really work hard in a month, I'll feel better. And I have to do this because I can't go to the beach looking like this. I can't go through another summer looking like this. So I'm going to be really, really strict. And then you start this sort of like dieting pattern, right? Now, what's going to end up happening is even though you sort of feel like this time it'll be different, it's not. People tend to make changes when the pain of their current situation, in this case, how you feel about your body, is greater than the perceived pain of what you're going to have to give up to achieve it. So in this case, you're thinking, well, giving up the food that I like and being really strict with myself for a short period of time is going to hurt less in this moment than I feel right now based on how I look and how I'm feeling about myself. What ends up happening is once you make a little bit of progress there, then the pain of what you're giving up becomes greater than how you look. In other words, what's going to happen is you'll start whatever diet, right? You'll do it for a little while, just like everything else. And then what's going to end up happening is you're going to stop the diet. And you guys have heard me go on these spiels and rants a million times before, but the problem is most of these things, especially the extreme ones, what they create is they create restriction. And restriction is the hallmark and why so many people struggle with weight in the first place. If you pretty much know what you should be eating and this is not your first rodeo and you still have a difficult time around food, the root of your problem is a feeling of restriction around food. And in order for you to lose weight, if that's your goal right now, you're going to immediately go to, well, let me restrict really hard because that's what's going to make me really successful really fast. The problem is that your actual problem is your relationship with food. And the more you feel like you can't have it, the more you're going to want it. So if you're relying on willpower in this situation, and you're like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. If you've listened to me talk about willpower before, willpower is like lighter fluid. It burns up really fast. It's not a real thing. What ends up happening is however strict you were, once you can't do that anymore, which it will definitely be for a short period of time, then you're going to have the exact opposite reaction on the other end of the spectrum, meaning then you're going to be binging. And then by July or by that date that you had in your mind, you're going to be exactly in the same place. Because when you're all or nothing about it and you give yourself 100 and then you take 100, you're always left with 0. So you'll be eating really, really strict, really, really crazy for a little while. And then the second that you have something in your mind, you're going to feel like you screwed up and then you're going to be binging. It's the cycle that we talk about all the time. It's a cycle that we help people break at Nutrition Mish. It's my favorite thing to do because until you actually break the cycle, weight could be a struggle for you. But that's not what this episode is about. I just don't want you going there because that's going to be the natural reaction. So you have your little toxic conversation with yourself. We're going to skip the negotiating point, and then I'm hopefully going to make some points to you right now that'll make sense, that'll hopefully reframe how you're feeling about yourself in this moment. All right, I want you to sit down. I want full attention. I want you to hear me. I'm going to say 2 things to you, and I'm going to explain them to you. I'm going to prove them to you, and then I want you to let what I say become a part of your being as much as you possibly can. Number 1, nobody is ever going to be as critical about your body as you. We're going to change that. But what I mean by that is you think everyone is looking at you. No one's looking at you. You think the only people that are looking and judging your body are other people that are also insecure about their bodies. People who are secure in their bodies don't really think to do that. So the only other people that are judging you because they aren't feeling good about themselves. And so therefore, them judging you has absolutely nothing to do with you. It's their own shit. So that's number 1, is nobody's ever going to be anywhere near as critical as you are. Nobody's ever going to notice the shit that you're noticing. No one's going to notice the cellulite. No one's going to notice the extra rolls. No one's going to notice the couple extra. No one's going to notice except for you unless you draw attention to it. Number 2 is when people do notice it, they're not noticing usually that you gained weight. What they are noticing is that you are uncomfortable in your own skin. That's what makes people notice. And that can happen at any size. And I will prove it to you. Confidence has very little to do with how people look and a lot to do with how they carry themselves. I'm sure, and I like to use guys because I feel like guys are better at this than women are, generally speaking. Have you ever seen a guy who's maybe like not the most aesthetically pleasing at first glance, but then you talk to him and he's like cool and confident and funny, and then all of a sudden you're like, is this guy hot? They just become so much more attractive just because of the energy and the confidence that they're putting out there. Aesthetically, they didn't change at all, but you perceive them as being hotter or more attractive because of their confidence and their energy that they're putting out there. Conversely, I can have, I'm just going to say a woman here who is a drop dead gorgeous model, like beautiful, aesthetically perfect, whatever, but she's not comfortable in her own skin and she doesn't like the way she looks and she's hypercritical. That girl is going to read less attractive because of the energy that she's putting out there. So aesthetics are a piece of it, but energy is a way bigger piece of it. And we can change that right now. We don't need to wait until mid-July. And I will tell you this from experience for myself. Obviously, when I was younger in my early 20s, as we all were, I weighed less than I do now. But at that time, I was so uncomfortable in my own skin and I was so self-conscious about my body. And I hated it so much that now, even though I weigh a little bit more than I did then, I get so much more attention. And I feel like people find me more attractive now than I did then, even though I weighed less then than I do now. The only thing that changed was how I talk to myself about it and how I actually feel about it. And this is something that you want to learn now and really should learn now because, again, I've worked with thousands and thousands and thousands of women. Everyone seems to think that confidence will come with weight loss. When I lose weight, then I will finally love my body. Then I will finally love myself. Then I will finally be at peace with myself. And I've seen that happen maybe 5 to 10% of the time. Usually what ends up happening is you're so preconditioned and you're so programmed to speak negatively about yourself, and you're so used to hating yourself, and you're so used to it never being good enough that even when you lose the 5, 10, 15, 20, even 50 pounds, it's never good enough. You're always like, well, if 5 more pounds, or, oh, well, if I go to the gym a little bit more, well, oh, if this was a little bit, you'll always find something wrong with your body if that's how you've been training yourself to view it. So let's start changing the conversation now. And I want to see if you get treated differently, if you feel differently when you go out. I want to see if that even changed how you act and how you show up in the world. I guarantee you it will at literally any size. One more way I can sort of prove this to you have you ever like put on a new outfit and you're like feeling yourself in that outfit, even if you're not somebody that normally allows yourself to feel like you're feeling this. You're like, all right, I look pretty good, right? So you wear that outfit, you go out, and I guarantee you got compliments. I know you got compliments. It wasn't because of how you looked, it was because how you felt in that outfit. Because Then let's say you wore that outfit maybe like, another time or two or three down the road, and it kind of like lost its new and shininess for you. You probably don't get the same amount of compliments. Now you still look the same in that outfit, but your energy isn't quite the same around it because you've worn it a couple times. Like it's not as exciting as when it was brand new. So that's just another really good example of how your energy and how you carry yourself changes how people view you. It has a lot less to do with how you actually physically look as you think, and a lot more to do with how you're presenting and how you're showing up in the world. So I don't need you to fully understand the impact of this statement. We're going to deep dive that on another episode, but just trust it to be true for a moment. Your thoughts create your beliefs. Your beliefs create your actions create your identity. So if you're thinking all day long, I'm so fat, I'm a piece of I'm gross, I'm ugly, I hate myself, blah, 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 can't believe you did this, that's going to be your belief system. Now, the problem with that being your belief system is your brain doesn't know the difference between things that are beliefs, which are not true, and facts, which are true. If you tell yourself something over and over and over again, your brain's gonna be like, okay, cool, it's true. And the reason it does this is because your brain can only focus on so much consciously at one time. So your brain has to like autopilot a lot of shit. It's like tabs open up in your computer that you're not using in the background. So your brain wants to autopilot as much as it can. So if you repeat something over and over and over again with emotion, your brain's like, oh, cool, that one must be true. We're just going to let that one run on autopilot all the time. So if you said that to yourself over and over and over again, your belief system is that you are all those things. Your brain's like, okay, cool, that's a fact. And now you're going out in the world acting like that's a fact, and that just becomes who you are. So in order to change that, it really stems back to changing your thoughts around it. So if you're like, all right, cool, Michelle, so now I have to stare at myself in a mirror and tell myself I love the way I look when I don't love the way I look. No, but what we do have to do is we have to take some of these beliefs that you've created and we have to poke some holes in them so your brain stops believing that they're true. It will feel to you, if you feel disgusting, if you hate the way you look, if you think you're fat, whatever it is, it will feel true to you. It will feel like that is accurate. So I like to call this my 100-person test. If I put 100 people in a room, would 100 people agree? So let's say you're like, all right, well, I think I look disgusting. Would 100 people in a room agree you look disgusting? Probably not. There would probably be at least one person in there that's like, nope, she's not disgusting. If you're like, oh my God, I look so fat in this, 100 people in a room might not agree with that. Or maybe some people in a room like curves, they like the way you look. Like, so if 100 people in a room wouldn't agree, it's not a fact, it's a belief. Okay. Now, let's say the belief is, well, I've gained 5 pounds. Okay, that might be true, right? That might be true because if the starting weight here is more than than the end weight here, and there's a 5 pound difference, then that is true. That is a fact. But would 100 people in a room agree that if you gained 5 pounds that you're less attractive or less worthy? No, that's a belief. But if we're just talking about beliefs for a second, because that's what's ruling the show here in most cases, that I look disgusting in this, well, 100 people in a room probably would not agree that you look disgusting in it. So it's a belief, not a fact. So if that's the case, if you're subscribing to the belief that you look disgusting, but it's a belief, so that means the opposite can be true to somebody, that you don't look disgusting. Let's start choosing the thought that's more in line with the experience we want to have. Both are equally true to someone. Do you want to have the experience where you feel disgusting and that's how you're acting in the world and that becomes your identity? Or do you want to start having the experience where you're not disgusting and then see how you show up there? That's how you start to create confidence in a way that doesn't feel like bullshit. I don't love affirmations because for me, they're not grounded in anything. And a lot of times they do sort of feel like bullshit. So that's a way where you can sort of create a framework around it to be like, okay, maybe I feel this way about myself, but not everybody does. So, and I only feel this way about myself because I've been telling myself the story for so many years. What if I start telling myself the other story because it is true for someone, because this is not a fact? That's going to start changing how you show up in the world, and that's going to start changing your identity. So I understand that if you have years or possibly even decades of self-loathing your body, all of a sudden changing that is going to seem like a big leap to you. I get that. I'm not saying you have to be a body positive person right now. What I want to challenge you to do is I want to challenge you to change how you're talking to yourself about your body. And then I want you just to see, just as an experiment, if by changing how you're talking to yourself around your body, does that change how you feel about it over time? Does that change how you show up in the world? Does that change how people interact with you? Does that change how you enter a room? Just try it as an experiment. What it will do is it will create space and make it easier for you to actually get in better eating habits, to actually fix your relationship with food, to actually get into that exercise routine, because you can't hate yourself into consistency. I've seen people try to do it for years. I've never seen it work once. Start changing the conversation and start seeing how that changes your life. And if that is something that you need help with, that is the joy of my life. That is what I love doing. That is my calling in this life, with food, with weight, with confidence, with relationships, with all of it. I really have the pleasure of working with people and finding the root cause of their problems and their belief systems and helping people rewrite the internal dialogues that hold them back from creating the life that they want. So, if you're like, that sounds cool, I would like to work with you, check out the link in my bio and definitely follow me on Instagram at Mish of Nutrition Mish and tell me what you thought of this episode. I will see you guys next Thursday.